I didn't show up to be a hero that night. I showed up to make rent and keep my little brother's world from wobbling. And then a man in a midnight suit looked at me like I was lint on his sleeve and said clear enough for 3 tables to hear, "Keep your hands off my glass." The piano kept playing for half a second, then choked. The candlelight suddenly felt colder, and I felt that hot flush people feel when someone tries to shrink them in public. I've been through worse, sure, but there was something else in the air that wasn't about ego at all. It was chemical. It was wrong, and it hit my nose like a memory. My name is Amara Ellis, 25 server, at a rooftop place in Portland called Linden and Stone, the kind of spot where the wine list has a better outfit than I do. And everybody talks softer because the skyline makes them feel important. I was raised by a nurse who could decode a medication label in her sleep. And when she got sick, I learned more chemistry at our kitchen table than some folks learn in a lab. So when the temp runner set down a bottle I didn't recognize, foil a little twisted label too clean, like someone had wiped it wine too warm and a shade too dark, my body went alert. The man in the suit, Victor Hale, founder of HaleGen Therapeutics, you know the type, lifted his glass like a performance, and that's when I caught it faint but sharp. The bitter almond note nobody thinks about until it's too late. My hand moved before my mouth did. I knocked the glass out of his grip. Crystal exploded on marble like a starter's pistol then. Red wine fanned across linen, and my manager's face went the color of printer paper. "You're out of your mind," Victor barked, chair legs screaming as he stood. "She assaulted me. That's $1,000 pour." Phones clicked open. The piano died, and I said the only thing that mattered. It smelled like bitter almonds, and that can mean cyanide. You could feel the room divide. Some people stared at me like I'd torched a church. Some stared at the bottle like it might blink first. And then Portland PD walked in with a detective who didn't treat me like a headline in waiting. Detective Iris Delgado bagged the glass, asked where the bottle came from, called in a tech and hazmat just in case. And while Victor tried the whole do-you-know-who-I-am routine, the sommelier shook his head and swore that bottle wasn't ours. We pulled the feed from the service hallway, watched a temp named Noel Pike ease out the back the second the glass shattered, apron stuffed into recycling like a bad alibi. The field test came back quicker than anyone in that room could adjust their faces. Preliminary positive for hydrogen cyanide trace residue on the shards. Estimated concentration. Not a scare lethal. Air left the dining room like someone cracked a window on a plane. People stepped back from a stain like it could climb, and for the first time that night, Victor actually looked at me, not through me, and the look wasn't anger. It was the tremor that shows up when a person realizes how close they were to the edge. After the sirens and the reports, and the way my hands wouldn't stop shaking, I stood outside the ambulance and walked Detective Delgado through what I saw. Bad seal, smudged label, wrong temp, darker color, the smell, the way cyanide hides inside sweetness if you're not looking for it. And she took notes like a student who wanted to learn. I thought about my mom at that kitchen table, a whiteboard full of doses and side effects, the way she'd say, if you see something wrong, you don't wait for permission, you act. I also thought about how this could have gone if I'd been wrong. My job gone by sunrise, my name dragged my brother Omar, asking why grown-ups were being ugly about his sister. And I won't pretend courage feels clean, it never does. It feels like jumping and trusting the ground to show up. 2 days later, the cops found Noel in a motel off 82nd with a go bag and a burner phone, a fresh wire of 90 grand routed into his account through a Delaware shell with a pretty name and no real face. They followed the paper to a contact who did have a face. Mason Kerr, executive vice president at HaleGen, the heir apparent magazines love to photograph from the corner of a glass office. And this is the part where the story twists in the middle. because the poison wasn't random. It wasn't a crazy fan or a bad joke. It was a boardroom problem with an email trail. Inside the shell's messages, you could read the polite rot of ambition. Insurance, final solution, little phrases with lipstick on them. And behind it all was a man who had learned everything from Victor except patience. Yeah, that happened. The morning after, I was scrubbing counters because quiet is too loud after nights like that, and Victor walked in without the armor. No entourage, no PR fixer, just a blazer and a face that looked like it had met humility for the first time. "Ms. Ellis," he said, and it sounded strange in his mouth. "I owe you an apology." I didn't cushion it. I asked if the apology was for the glass, or the way he spoke to me before it broke, and he said both. Said he didn't see me and should have said I saw what he couldn't. Then he offered something I didn't see coming. A full scholarship through his foundation tuition and housing and books and a paid trainee spot in one of his labs with flexible hours and real mentors. Part of me wanted to say no just to hear the click of it. Pride can be loud. But then I thought about Omar and the journal articles I still read on my phone at midnight and my mom's hands on that whiteboard, and I said yes. Not because an apology fixes a system, but because a door was open and I refused to leave it swinging. The noise came, headlines, edits of the shattered glass in slow-motion trolls who say bravery is just luck with better lighting, and I learned the trick of turning down the volume. The messages that mattered didn't yell, they whispered. A middle schooler from Gresham who started a science club, a nurse who ignored a smell once and can't shake it, a dad whose daughter said she looks like me. You know what I mean. I enrolled at Cascade University, doubled down on molecular and cellular biology, with a side of public health because I want to build bridges, not just microscopes, and I showed up in a lab with a badge that said trainee and hands that wouldn't stop wanting to learn. Victor changed in ways I could see. He stopped peacocking, started listening, came to talk to our cohort, in a sweater instead of a sermon. And no, he didn't become a saint. That's not real, but he did start looking people in the eye who used to be invisible to him. And that counts for something, even if it's not everything. When the court put Mason on a calendar, I didn't go. I had classes and finals. Do not care about your subplot. But I read the summaries with my morning coffee and watched Ortega from Evidence map the money like a weather system. And the jury did what juries do when dots connect themselves. Meanwhile, my life kept moving. Omar yelled too loud at my graduation, and I loved him for it. I walked across the stage with a cap I decorated the night before and a stomach full of butterflies, and they handed me a degree with honors and a small plaque for humanitarian courage that still feels too big for my shelf. I said what felt true at the mic. I wasn't brave so much as tired of pretending not to notice. Sometimes doing the right thing looks reckless for 10 seconds, and life-saving for the next 10, and a person the world tries to ignore might be the one who saves it. And then we ate cupcakes, and I told my aunt about the thing I wanted to build next. We called it the Lena Project after my mom. It started as a stack of lab kits and a Saturday circle for girls who ride 2 buses to the library, a tiny scholarship fund, a whiteboard with the same notes my mom used to write for me. Except now I'm the one holding the marker. And if you're wondering, yes, it makes me cry sometimes in the best way. People ask about forgiveness like it's a medal. Did you forgive Victor? Do you feel different when he walks in a room? And the honest answer is that forgiveness is a practice, not a prize. Some mornings I'm generous. Some mornings that sentence he tossed at me replays like a ringtone, and my jaw tightens. Both can be true at the same time. People ask if I'd do it again, and I say yes. Luck helped me notice, knowledge helped me trust what I noticed, and the choice to move is the only part that belongs completely to me. Also, because this is life and not a movie, The restaurant still seats men who talk down to women who look like me. I still take those tables because rent has no romance, and sometimes I still smell a note in the air. And my heartbeat does that jump, and I breathe, and I keep going. So here's where I leave you, and I hope it sits with you longer than the skyline shot. If you had been me that night, would you have knocked the glass? Would you call it reckless or necessary? And how many times have you watched bias play out at your job at school, at your own dinner table, and told yourself to keep the peace? Tell me where you land. Argue it out in the comments without getting ugly. Share it with the person in your life who always smells the smoke before anyone else. And if you want more stories that cut under the headline to the human center, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Courage doesn't wait for a stage. It asks for a minute of your attention and a decision to act. And yeah, that part is on all of us.